Welcome to Verdicts Vogue. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks
Cheers.
for having me. Salud.
Salute.
So excited.
Well, I'm happy that you're supporting me with this new venture that we're doing. And I thought it would be a perfect fit since, you know, the whole purpose of the podcast is try to serve as mentorship and to give a voice for women and young professionals to kind of just see what's real, like the good and the bad, the wins and the lessons. And with that, I thought, okay, who I feel more comfortable like interviewing and talking with? And then I thought no one else but you, because you kind of brought me into this personal injury.
I love it. I love that.
And you know, if it wasn't for you, there would be a lot of different areas of my life that I would not have at this moment. So
I'm honored.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And tell us about yourself.
Wow. Where do I start?
What about your name?
So my name is Ilya, and it's actually a Russian man's name. I'm not Russian. I am Latina. I was born in Douglas, but my father wanted something very cosmopolitan. He was very well-read, very educated. He was a lawyer and a judge himself. So he settled on a poet that he really liked.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, and are you still Lerma? Or are you going to be changing it?
We're exploring it right now. So I don't want it, professionally it's tough, right? Like you have to, my law firm's in my name, all my licenses are in my name.
And for those who don't know, Ilya was recently married to a very fine and wonderful gentleman, Brad Schaefer.
Yes. And Brad is my CEO and my CFO and runs all of the consulting out of my firm. He's been doing that for the last year, although he ran a partnership of consultants. Prior to that, he was the executive director there. So he's been in the business now a couple of years and doing great. But I haven't decided, how we're going to navigate the switch to Schaefer just yet.
And what does Brad say about the switch? Does he want the Lerma or is he edging for the Schaefer? I'm just curious.
He's left it up to me, really.
Yeah?
Yeah, he really has.
So, when I went out on my own, I had just gotten married with Chris, probably about a year. And Perez is my birth name, and then Hesano is my married name. And I actually started Perez Law Group 1 year after I got married. And everyone was fine with that because I thought, in my mind, for me, my father and my mother gave me the education. And I didn't get married until I was 29. So by that time, I was already an attorney. I had just gone on my own. So I thought, let me keep that tribute to my family because they worked so hard to get me there. And everyone was fine with it except one sister-in-law. She was like, why didn't you open Hesano law firm? And I was like, well, sister-in-law, who will remain nameless, because it's my father paid for my law school, so, but it was a big thing. And until today, when we did a Secret Santa, she was my Secret Santa. She still named my present. She named me Cristina Hesano. Never used her.
Oh, wow. It's still the little dig. Got to get it in there.
But what do you say for women who are navigating like in marriages and changing of names? Like what, any advice?
I love this question, honestly, because I think it's such a really great time for women that you can do whatever you want. I think if you're willing to buck the system and not have everybody weigh in and live in your head with their own opinions, do what you want. It's up to you and your husband, or maybe just you. They're not the ones who have to go through the change in the licensure and kind of the implications of all of that. And hopefully you've married somebody who's going to be supportive of whatever decision you make, and go for it. Make your own choice.
Sure. I will tell you, with my kiddos, they do ask me every once in a while, how come you're Perez? And I'm Perez Hesano, so I'm both. But he'll say, how come you're not Hesano like us? And I say, well, I am. I just have Perez and Hesano. And then my dog, Freddie, his last name is Perez because I wanted one kid to be named after me. And so his name is Freddie Perez.
I love it. My kids, I was married prior to this. My children have actually two middle names. So they have their middle name, and then my last name Lerma is their second middle name.
Okay.
And they've asked me, what am I going to do when I get married? I'm like, I don't know. It's up to you. You figure it out.
Kind of like whatever you want.
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like I think we're in a really great window of time, and a lot of the assumptions about whose name you're carrying. You know, if you're willing to get out of the way of everybody's opinion, you can find something that works for you.
Sure. That's just great advice. I saw that you recently did a video from your honeymoon with the blue skies behind you, and with the blue water and then the blue skies behind you. It was like picture perfect. One, how amazing was your honeymoon?
It was a 12 on a 10 scale.
Oh, that's amazing.
It really was.
And would you recommend that vacation?
I absolutely would. It's worth saving for. It's definitely an investment. We took one of the yacht/catamaran private boats around St. Thomas with 3 other couples.
Okay.
And there were 3 crew. We had a captain, a first mate, and a private chef.
Okay.
The first mate also doubled as our bartender, and she was fantastic. They were all great. But it was an unbelievable experience. The food, I've experienced the Caribbean on a cruise. I've also stayed at several resorts in the Caribbean, but being on that yacht, on the water, and they have all these toys, the foil, and we had these. I was talking to Carrie about this earlier. They have these like sea-doos that dive for you. You don't even have to swim. It just like does the work for you, and just the food on the ship was just amazing. So,
what was your favorite part of the trip?
Brad planned a special honeymoon date. Aww. So that he'd worked out kind of in advance. And they told him, like, we are not the below deck people. Like, we don't really have enough. But they were just wonderful. And they put together a little shore excursion for us. And by the time I showed up, the picnic was all spread out. There was a bottle of Camus that was chilling. And our fresh focaccia and sandwiches and chocolate covered strawberries were set out for us. And
so that's so romantic.
Yeah, it was. Brad. And Brad brought music and he brought flowers and we danced on the beach because we didn't get to dance at the wedding. We were so busy. We had one 30-second dance together, and we've done salsa now for a couple of years.
I don't think that I saw you. I looked over during the wedding and I saw you because I went to your wedding along with Carrie. And I kind of was the third wheel because Chris had to stay home with the kiddos, and I was the third wheel with her and Eric. But I looked over and you were dancing a little bit, but I didn't get a chance to dance with you. I was so bummed that we didn't get a chance. But what I loved about your wedding was you had the silent music.
Oh yeah,
the silent party.
Disco.
It was. I've never done that before.
Isn't it fun?
It was so much fun.
It's a blast.
Where'd you get that idea?
From a cruise ship. I did it on a cruise ship. And the thing about it is the music coming through the headphones. So for people who don't know, you'll have, maybe 3 or 4 different channels. So you can pick your headphones and the channel. So you can listen to disco or salsa music or, 80s pop. Everybody can find their own channel and they tune into the channel and just dance their own dance. But it's quiet to everybody who doesn't have headphones.
It was so perfect because you could have a conversation and then you'd look over and then someone was like, clearly dancing like Spanish music because they were going this way. And then another person was like hip hopping it. Yeah. And I was like, and it was so cool.
And everybody stops caring. Yeah. Like somehow like everybody just gets into their own jam and they just really let loose. And
I want to recreate that. I mean, I don't know. I don't have an occasion for it, but I'm going to make one so I can do it.
I'm there. Okay. I am there. It's so fun.
The purpose of me talking about that video was you're going to be speaking at a conference coming up in May. And I wanted to talk about your involvement in that conference. And if you can tell us a little bit about, is it connectionality? How do you say the word?
Connectionology.
Connectionology. Yeah.
So connectionology was started by John Romano, who's a very prominent attorney in Florida. He's been around forever. He's also one of my mentors and probably one of the great trial lawyers with just the biggest heart. He's so eager to help younger aspiring lawyers, younger aspiring consultants like myself. When I was first starting, just really opened up opportunities for me to be able to talk about the services that we do through my firm in terms of trial consulting. Put me on his podcast, and he's really about creating a good network, but also an education platform. And so I was engaged. Actually, Brad asked me to marry him at a Connectionology event. So the John and Nancy Romano are big supporters of us and just wonderful people all around.
Oh, I remember. I actually got the video of Brad proposing to you from someone who was there and knew that I knew you and said, "Oh, look, Ilya just got engaged," and I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, you could tell Brad is like super romantic, right? Romantic. So I got lucky.
So will you be speaking at this year's? Because I think it's May 8th through 10th. Is that right?
Right. Yes, I will be speaking. So my topic this year is on witness preparation, which is one of my favorite topics because I think it's something as trial lawyers we kind of skip over. We think we've done it. Nobody ever really trains you how to do it, so you never really know if you're doing it well. And so I love being able to present on this topic because it allows me a lot of opportunities to engage with the audience, but also to kind of deliver some things that maybe they haven't really thought about yet.
Sure. I mean, I've seen you in action, so I know how wonderful you are at witness prep. But I would hope that if anyone has the opportunity to see you, give the presentation to really take you up on that. And
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I know how great you are at it. So.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. With coming up with what's next, because I know that you've kind of had a little bit of a pivot. And one of the reasons also that I wanted to have you here is you kind of come across as a really well-balanced and rounded attorney. When I say that, I know
it's a long journey to get here.
But when I say that, it's because of all of and I know your history, so we don't have to get into those specifics, but all of the kind of like the lessons that you've gone along the way where you actually took a moment to find yourself and find also what how to properly have your own you day, how to have like a break day, how to find yourself. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that journey as to why it's important for attorneys to have that mindfulness and balance.
Well, I think especially for women, right? Because I think we get sort of caught up in the trap of being the professional and having everything perfect in our practices, but then we also fall into the trap that everything also has to be perfect at home. And for me, I had young kids at home, and it was very, very challenging to be able to try to navigate all of it. And I realized I wasn't doing any of it well. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people will ask, well, how do you balance? And I was never really good at balance. Sure. I think I've looked at it as shifting priorities. Like, okay, I have an MSJ due, the end of this week. So that's my focus. And then after that, I'll take the kids to the zoo. It's just sort of changing. But what I found is, without a little bit of downtime, I was just exhausted. And there was a point in time when my health was really taking a hit. My hormones were out of balance. I was really stressed out. And I really just needed to take a breather. I needed to take a breather away from work. I needed to refocus and decide what it is I'm doing and get very intentional about what I wanted out of my practice, about what I wanted out of my future. Mm-hmm. And once I did that, it became easier to start to say no, start to turn things down, start to tell the girl's dad, this was after we were divorced, like, hey, you really need to spend time with your kids, sure. And so that I didn't have to feel guilty about taking some time for myself. And that's a trap that I think a lot of female professionals fall into.
Well, you're always the first one to volunteer and overextend.
Constantly.
How would you suggest, let's say to a younger listener, to find the power to say no?
It sounds simple, but it's not easy. And the ways you have to choose it. You have to be willing to put yourself first and put aside the feelings of guilt and say that, I am no good to anybody if I have no cup to give from.
Sure.
And so when you begin to start nourishing yourself from a better place, you're better in all aspects. And when I started doing that and I stopped feeling guilty and I stopped beating myself up because I couldn't constantly meet the mark in every category of wife, mother, and partner, law partner, everything got better. I took off the hat that said I needed to be perfect in everything, and I started to give myself grace. and give myself a little bit of forgiveness that, okay, kind of messed that up. I missed my kids, whatever at school. I can't beat myself up over that. I do the best I can.
Sure. And it's timely because just today, I mean, we talked a little bit about it before, but without giving the name away, it still happens where you may, like for myself, I thought that I was doing as much as I possibly could, but it landed on someone else saying that it wasn't, I'm always too busy. And because I have, in his words, where you're too busy because, you have kids and their schedules. And I'm like, well, what do I do about that? So, I mean, there's that, I think for women, there's that pressure because it does, it's like looking back, I had to take a step back and say, wait, I wrote like all of the stuff and I did all of the client interaction. I did all of it. So, but it still comes across where it's like, well, if my kid's in the car and I have taken a phone call because I'm taking the phone call while I'm spending time with my kid to talk to you about the case, then they can be a little noisy. I'm still getting my point across. But I think that's kind of what do you do in that situation? Like, how do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, first of all, I think you're incredible because I know some of the things that you have on your plate in terms of your practice, and it's very impressive that you can navigate all of that. But as your friend, I also worry because I'm like, I know I've been in the shoes where I'm trying to do too much. And the grace piece, I think, is huge, where you just have to, you just kind of have to say F it, and tell that other person in your head and maybe that other co-counsel, I'm doing my best, and be okay with that.
Sure.
And really, really own it, because the truth of the matter is, when I was divorced and I had 2 young kids at home, I was doing a lot of the parenting, and I was trying to start my law practice. I started on my own in 2015, and I was doing it on my own without any help from anybody. And there's a lot of things going on. I was in the middle. I've only been involved personally in one lawsuit, and this was the period of time. And I really felt frustrated and just exhausted and overwhelmed. And kind of what I realized is I just needed to take a step back, give myself that grace that I am doing the best I can, and stop letting everybody else's opinion affect where I am. Sure. And that's really it.
It sounds easy, but I think it's a learned skill where it's like you have to be able to, and as I get older, as I hit my 40s, I started. So now I'm 44. I've been able to obtain the F it gene, where it's like, if I don't care,
I love it.
F it, right? So it's like all of a sudden it developed. And so it's like
the F it gene. I'm going to totally steal that.
It's like
I didn't know if that was appropriate for the podcast, but I figured you could edit it out.
I say F it because, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't, I mean, you have to just look at it. It's like, I mean, we're at this point in our lives, right, where we're old enough now where you don't need to have every single person like you.
Exactly. And they're not going to anyway. So exactly to your point, I think of it as like a muscle, and the muscle gets stronger the more you exert it. And I think I trailed off in my last answer. One of the things that occurred to me as I'm raising my 2 kids and going through this really dramatic experience in my starting my practice is I told my mother one time, I wish I had a wife. Right? Like I need somebody to help me and like support me and maybe like do some of the things with it, like help me with the kids chauffeuring and pick up the dry cleaning. Like I'm doing all of this on my own, sure, running the law practice and doing those things. Like I would really like to have a wife who does that. And later I realized, like, I'm not looking for a wife, I'm looking for a partner. Yeah. And so now I feel very blessed that I do have that. But, I think it's okay to want those things and to exercise the muscle so that you can make the room for yourself to have them.
That's amazing. Now, as you enter into this new work, because I think your practice has changed. So when I met you, you were involved in a different area. You were kind of with a different group. Then you broke out on your own. And since then, you have been doing the personal injury portion dedicated to brain injury clients, and then also to the trial consulting and witness prep, right?
Right.
And so as you're growing and as you're, developing your own practice, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh, gosh.
Such a hard question, right?
It is.
I know.
But I love it because, again, intentionality is everything. Because I think a lot of the temptation, especially now, there's like so much targeted marketing and, you know, you have to grow your practice and have the numbers. And there's all these like vendors who are pushing, you know, marketing and, you know, it's sort of exhausting. For me, I'm fortunate that I can be a lot more deliberate in terms of where I want to focus and what I want to be working on. I've been so blessed in opportunities to work with, you know, nationally recognized trial counsel, to get involved in their cases, either as a consultant, sometimes as co-counsel. I absolutely love the co-counsel work. I just feel like that's my signature opportunity to deliver my best. Because preparing witnesses, I've had a couple moments in trial. One of them was in a federal court case here. It was against Johnson & Johnson a few years ago, where you're just in that moment, like in the zone, right? Like everybody, the judge disappears, the jury disappears. It's just you and the witness. And those moments I just absolutely live for.
It's that feeling.
Yeah. And what I realize is that not every lawyer can create that. And I'm able to create that. So when I have opportunities to work with other lawyers on a high level, that's really what I'd like to concentrate my focus on. I do love working on the brain injury cases. I love the medicine. I'm totally nerd out on the science and the medicine on the medical cases. But there are so many other different kinds of cases that I love working on too. Okay. So I'd like to put some of those out there as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think that's great. I know that with the case that we tried, which was you thought I was crazy for doing it, taking it to trial, right?
well, I think my instruction to you was pick a good case. No, I said pick a good case, and I literally think you found the hardest case in your firm. I'll tell you that I don't know if you know this part. Brad gave us a 7% chance of winning that case.
He did.
He did 7%.
7%.
Yeah, he's like, what are you doing?
Like, what?
And I kept saying, I said, we can do it.
Well, we had a lot of odds against us in that case. We had a Spanish-speaking client, a really good-looking young defendant who was like just so cute,
sweet
student,
sweet looking,
lying through her teeth, but so sweet, right?
Yeah, we had a 4-month gap in care, like minimal
no surgery, minimal damage. Yep.
It was about like beyond the trifecta of horrible facts,
and I just couldn't let it go. I couldn't let it go because I believed her. I knew that she did not do herself justice. By not getting the surgery, when we went to trial with no surgery, right? That she,
yes. Yeah, that too, that too. But I also count that among my biggest wins because we beat their offer by 16 times.
17 times. We beat it by 17 times.
Their last best offer. So, I mean, they were not expecting it. No. I think it was a blast trying a case with you. I love my male co-counsel, but I love trying cases with women. It's just such a different vibe.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. I think the best moment that I had by far was when I was practicing closing and you were helping to sew my skirt that had ripped.
The back seam right before closing argument where it stares, I'm like, and then I'm
like, I can do an invisible stitch. I promise. And it comes back. I'm like, that's not invisible.
I'm 49 and my close is going. So I'm trying to do this invisible stitch from here.
Your hand up my skirt, trying to do it. But it got sewed. So the skirt was sewed. We were able to the closing. You did an amazing rebuttal, and then the jury voted for our client.
Yeah,
they came back, and we won. So
we had a tough jury. I mean, do you remember? We got 16 people struck for cause, and we barely had enough people to even hear that case.
So on that note, I remember it was. Can I say the judge?
I think you can.
Okay, Judge Hannah. Right, Judge Hannah. I'm not sure if he's retired yet or not. He's retired.
Very close. Okay. I think it's this year.
And so some of the questions that just got so heated when we were doing voir dire, they got so heated, and that, you handled voir dire, and we almost busted that panel to the point where Judge Hannah was like, we don't have any alternates anymore. We don't have any other alternates. This is it. This is what you get, and we're not doing this again. Because I don't know how that all erupted, but we lost, I don't know how many people.
It was 16. I still remember. That's the most I've ever gotten for a cause.
Yeah. So,
and they started out strong. Like they were happy to give opinions about how much they hated plaintiff lawyers and people who sue for money.
Oh yeah. That we were all a racket and that we had
we're in cahoots with the chiropractors. We have billboards,
all that stuff. And we had to really tell them, like, we're not on billboards. You will not see me on a billboard. It's fine for them, but we're here on a different case.
Yeah.
No, I remember it was a lot of fun though.
It was. Do you remember what he said though? I remember like once we were all done with the panel, I turned around, I was going to sit and I sit down next to you and Judge Hannah goes, wow, that was interesting.
he told the jury, he said to the jury, well, before he like let them go, he's like, well, guys, I've never been through something like this in all my years, and I'm close to retiring. I think he told us that he was retiring at that time.
Yeah.
He goes, I'm soon to be retiring, and I have never experienced this.
Anything like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that for me felt a little bit like a test of my skills, in jury selection, because I was oddly calm, in a way that, because that's always the most terrifying part of trial, when you're talking to strangers who hate you already for no reason, and you're already, the tendency is to want to get to defensive.
Well, we had some of the potential jurors who we had on that panel were, seriously, they were just charged, because when we brought up whether someone should be able to speak Spanish or another language in America, and then they just lost it.
Mm-hmm. We were in the middle of the border crisis.
Yeah,
we were.
Time. It was pretty heated and hot.
Very.
Yeah, and jurors arguing against each other, where it was like we just sat. At one moment I just sat back and just watched. I'm like, okay, we don't want him, we don't want her. I don't want cause.
I'm trying not to sweat and pretend like this is all normal.
We're not going to have anyone here. Why are they all arguing with each other? But I thought it was. Overall, at the end, it was a great job done on like getting our panel, because we ended up having people who really wanted to do right. They wanted to help. But I did notice, and I don't know if you got this impression, because when we went back to talk to, so in Arizona, we're allowed, if the jurors want, we can, for those who don't know, we can go back and talk to the jury. And we asked, and they wanted to talk to us. So I went back, you went with me, and then our defense counsel went with us as well. And even though we had caught the defendant lying, her witness lying, and being evasive of the answers, and just the first question that they asked was, will that young American girl be okay? Because they thought that she had to pay the money out of her pocket.
Yeah. They
didn't really care about the injured person that was our client that they were forced to pay the money to. It landed on me like, well, that's really odd. And that's when the defense counsel said, well, I'm here from blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And the moment that they said that, that's when they're like, oh, well, we should have awarded more then.
Yeah. It's crazy.
My heart dropped. I was like, what?
It's hard for people. In insurance, the insurance industry knows this, which is why we have the rule of evidence that says you can't talk about insurance, is because once jurors know that insurance is involved, their numbers are going to go up. And it's just really, really hard, because people come into court. So much of the consulting that I do is dealing with what happens outside the courtroom and what people are bringing in, those preconceived ideas about who we are as plaintiff lawyers, what we stand for, and how do we get our message across? Because instantly, like, people are forming decisions about you the moment they look at you.
Within seconds, like less than a second, they already have their formed beliefs on you based on whatever else that they've experienced in the past, right? That's what the bias is. So it's weeding out that bias.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And most people want to do the right thing, but they need an opportunity to get to know you. And I think one of the big mistakes that I made as a young trial lawyer is I came out swinging. We know the usual suspects that they always hire, to say the exact same thing. And they're paid good money to not find injury with our client, not find, property damage that's over a delta V of like -0, all of those things. So we come out ready to go fisticuffs. But for women, and I learned this a little bit late, but fortunately I learned it, I was coming out too strong, because the jury doesn't know the journey that your client has been on, that you've been fighting, how hard you've had to fight, motions to compel, disclosures, evidence that the defense is hiding. You've had all these battles. So when you get to trial, you're like ready to go, and it's too much.
And I think it's also for something that, and you actually had to pull me back. I don't know if you recall this.
I did.
I think it's also something that that women go through. At least I went through, where you want to be seen as tough, right? And so you think that being tough means this. And in that situation, I remember with that particular doctor that we ended up actually narrowing his scope, like on the stand, right? But you had to write me a note and say, "Hey, take it easy," because he's our friend. Because I was ready. I was like, my goal in that with that witness was I need to make sure that he can't talk about all of this. Right. And so I was like ready to fight, and you were like, "Oh, bring it back."
Yeah,
I was like, "Don't come out." So I'm like, "Okay." Well, I learned that recently in January. I sat on. I joined a trial over in California, and I took that. I remember. So you were with me, like on my shoulder.
Oh,
like,
yeah, I love that.
And a juror actually, I spoke to I was cross-examining a radiologist, and I got him to admit that he had no reason to be there, right? He wasn't helpful at all. He wasn't going to help the jury understand anything, and that he shouldn't be there. He didn't have any opinions to offer that at all that would be beneficial. So he basically got to say that on the stand. And the juror came back later on and found me after the trial and said it. And then he sent me something by mail, like he sent some cards to me. And that was like his favorite part, the way that I addressed it. But the way that I addressed it with that, I wasn't argumentative. I was really kind. I was very nice. I smiled to the jury every morning when I saw them, or every time I went, because I think I did 4 or 5 witnesses during that trial. I would say good afternoon or good morning, and they really enjoyed it. I got them to start saying it back to me.
I love it.
Yeah. So as soon as I walked up, they were already ready, whether it's good morning or good afternoon. And it was really peaceful. Like I was
love
so
it.
Zen.
I
right?
love that.
And it was a completely different.
It makes me feel so good.
It was a completely different thing. Even the defense counsel at the end of the trial came up to me and said, that it was a real pleasure working with me, like throughout the whole thing. Like I really brightened up the room. Yeah, it was. So I took a different, like, I think it's an evolution from when we tried the case till like now this year. So it's like you have all these years where you're like, so it's like a constant growth.
It is. Yeah, it is. And I think that's something that we all go through. And it was actually, there's a senator here in Arizona, and she called her tactic when she was dealing with politics, her male counterpart, she called it the disappointed kindergarten teacher. And
what does that mean?
And it's just kind of like, no. And you're so disappointed in defense counsel. And what I realized is, I had to moderate my own aggressiveness and kind of take it to that level. Mm-hmm. But eventually, at the end of the trial, if you've delivered the goods, if you have exposed their witnesses for lying, or overstating, or you've delivered what you told the jury in opening, by closing, you can bring that indignant, that aggressiveness, mm-hmm. and it becomes very powerful. It has a purpose.
Okay. As you were saying that, it made me think of you doing rebuttal, where it was the best moment of my life, to be honest with you, where you go and you brought like this huge binder, and you take this, you like get up and you just take this binder and you go like this and you smash it on the table and you tell the jury, do you think that if they had anything, they wouldn't have been flashing it all around you? They would have all of this. So, I mean, I think that was the only time. I love that moment. I think it was the only time I ever, throughout that whole trial, where I saw you like be anything more than just calm, cool, and collected. It was just at that moment in rebuttal where it was just like perfect timing.
Yeah. Well, you can let yourself get there. I remember feeling that. I have a case. It's actually it just celebrated its 11th year since the date of injury. Wow. So it was a 10-year path to trial, almost 10 years. And then now it's on appeal. But there was a point in rebuttal where I really had this defense counsel, for me, is a little bit of an antagonist, kind of brought out my desire to fight, mm-hmm. and get, fight back. I did feel a little bit of misogyny on that end as well. So that would, holding back was frustrating. By closing, though, I felt it. There was that alchemy that connection to the jury where I felt like they hear me. And so things started to elevate in closing. So then they close and I have rebuttal. And Brad said, I sort of blacked out. I feel like I went into a tunnel and everything I wrote in notes, it just was gone. I just was talking to the jury and I just really spoke from the heart. But I have no memory of what I said.
Really?
I couldn't tell you. I could tell you everything about closing, but rebuttal feels like a flash. But Brad said that I was in front of the jury and my ponytail was like whipping back and forth. He said I was like flipping back and forth. And they had called out one of our client's ex-boyfriend for not being there. And I turned around to the administrator for the nursing home. And I was like, and what about him? I was like, Mr. X, like he's been in trial every single day. And they were short witnesses 3 days and they didn't call him once. And they want you to focus on the fact we didn't bring in a witness that my client hasn't seen for 4 years.
Wow.
So it was fun.
I mean, I bet I actually saw I requested your.
Oh, did you? Well, then you probably know better than I do.
I told Carrie earlier that I had the opportunity to stalk all my friends.
Oh my God!
So I can interview you guys in case something came up, so I knew exactly what you guys were talking about. From here. But
well, was it good?
It was great. I have it. I have a video. I can show you what I have.
That's funny.
But my jeans got stuck. So but that trial ended up, I mean, you guys, it was a long, hard fought, but it was a humongous verdict that you guys reached.
Yeah.
So,
second largest in Arizona, and only because Gary Dordick tried his case 5 weeks before mine.
Right. So it was a $10 million verdict.
It was.
And it's now up on appeal.
It is.
And are you just on pins and needles until like it gets there? Like, how do you feel now?
I'm not. I feel like, I'm smart enough to not handle my own appeal. So I have appellate counsel. So I feel much better about that. I feel very solid about what we've presented, but it's up to the panel. I think our appellate lawyers have done a phenomenal job. There's a companion piece to this. So a lot of people may know that there's not compulsory arbitration, contract arbitration in nursing home cases and assisted living cases. So part of our claim, the only claim that went to the jury on the 10 million was a medical malpractice claim.
Okay.
So some of our best evidence, it was actually excluded from that trial.
Wow.
So we have a panel arbitration that's coming up ideally at some point after the appeal.
Okay.
But I'm not on pins and needles. I'm still just doing the hustle.
There you go. I mean, I think that's the only thing we can do, right? We just got to keep it moving. It's one of the things. And so with that, last question, because I've been asking a question from all of my guests, trying to vary it up a little bit. If tomorrow you had the opportunity to have, doesn't matter the cost, doesn't matter the location, if you could have one meal of your choosing anywhere in the world, where would that meal be and what would that meal be? It's fun. See, it's easy.
Gosh.
It's easy, but it's hard.
It's hard because on the tail end of a picnic with fresh pistache bread on St. Thomas, that's really hard.
You're so spoiled. I asked you the wrong question.
That's it's tough to beat. But I will say, let me think about
Excluding what Brad did.
I know for certain it would involve a chocolate lava cake at the end. I know for certain it would involve champagne at the beginning. I'm going to say a really great steak. I know it sounds kind of boring, but a perfect steak is to me, it's simple, but there's so many ways that people screw it up.
Would you have any sides with it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I'm a big veggie person. Okay. So, Brussels sprouts.
Very healthy of you, except for the lava cake.
I would probably go with some kind of very light teriyaki glaze. And I would put it this time, same boat, not the island, on the boat, just Brad and I.
Oh,
and
so
salsa
sweet.
Dancing on the deck.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
That's what I would do.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to cheers to you. Thank you for being here
Thanks
and supporting
me. So fun.
Cheers.